Welcome to In Presence We Trust, a podcast about the art and heart of holding group transformational spaces. I'm Rachel Rickards, founder of the Field Facilitator Training. In Presence We Trust is a sanctuary for aspiring and experienced facilitators seeking to evolve their facilitation and embodied leadership. This podcast is designed to empower facilitators, leaders, and individuals from all walks of life to harness the transformative power of presence in their work and personal lives. In each episode, I will be harvesting insights from leading-edge facilitators doing transformational work in fields like relationships, embodiment, therapy, intimacy, and education. In this episode, I speak with Devora Bree. Dev has been working therapeutically and facilitating groups and rites of passage for over 20 years. She's a certified Hakomi therapist with years of studies and practice in a variety of body-oriented healing modalities, including somatic experiencing and biodynamic Cranio-Sacral therapy. She's a solo mama, a death doula, a sex therapist, and a forever student. Dev is also the founder and director of HoneyRoot, a somatic education organization in service of inclusive embodiment, relationships, social justice, and intergenerational community. At her essence, Dev is a dancer, a bridger, a ceremonialist. In the conversation you're about to hear, Dev shares more about her journey to being a trauma-informed facilitator as a next level of her own spiritual practice in combination with her studies in somatic psychotherapy. We speak about her organization HoneyRoot and how it came to be and how it's also grown her personally. And throughout the entire conversation, we continuously weave the importance of tracking tension and relaxation as the continuum and the extreme gift that it is to walk away from these spaces with a new tool set that will change the game for how we show up as empowered beings and relate with one another consciously. Finally, Dev and I speak about our extreme excitement to bring the field to the USA in our new budding collaboration. If you're ready to begin, join me in taking a deep breath. So where I want to just dive in today, we'll just do a little bit of contextual, where are you coming from and how did you get here? But I'd love to frame it around, we're going to be running a facilitator training together in Florida. And one of the big pillars of that training is it being around trauma-informed facilitation. And I know that this is a big piece of your work. And so I just love to hear a little bit of how that came to be. Like what was that journey that got you to the place where being trauma informed and understanding how to work with trauma became something that you feel passionate about and became a part of your professional profile of who you are and how you are.
Yeah. Well, being trauma-informed feels like it came in around the same time as my spiritual practice took on the next level of reality in my life. I studied somatic psychology as my kind of professional education route. And I remember when I was learning about the difference between staying in what I now call mental body. I want it to be a part of our body when we speak about it. The difference between being able to stay in cognition and stay present in cognition, and when a body itself just goes into a different state where engaging with the mental body, the cognitive body, it's just not useful. And so I got so excited that I was being handed something that was, first of all, something that I had been tracking. Like, we're engaging with a different part of someone here. But also that it was just so congruent with what I was practicing in my daily life, which is, can I slow myself down? Can I feel more layers of my experience simultaneously? Can I put my attention somewhere other than what's happening upstairs in my thoughts? And I love that there were how-tos in the trauma-informed world, like where to put my attention, how to support another by organizing myself in a certain way internally. So that's kind of the wow, the aha. It felt like magic, it felt like, oh, isn't this fun? But there is something that where people feel really stuck and they go, I can't get from point A to point B. But if we just get on a different map, we can absolutely get from point A to point B. So it felt like a really important tool. And then in terms of my facilitation, I have, this wonderful memory of a lot of facilitation I've done of receiving reflection of like, there's something going on in your spaces that helps me feel at ease. Like my whole self can show up. And what I realized, and over the course of the years of hearing that, is that I was including a lot more of one's body than I think they were accustomed to including. And so, and if there's anything that guides me, I really want a whole self to feel like they can show up in spaces I'm facilitating. So it was just very handy that trauma-informed work was a way to fulfill that that desire of mine to really conduct the space in a way that would allow someone to feel like they can fully be there.
Well, it would make sense also that like being somatically trained would naturally support a more trauma-informed perspective, because I find those two things, like the emphasis or priority on the body is, from my context, would incline one to be more trauma-informed because you're in that frame of tracking and witnessing and understanding the body's instincts and responses and what's shifting and changing in the present moment awareness as it arises through the body.
Yeah, I mean, somatic, it's funny to say, especially to you with how deeply involved you are in the field now, in the field of study now. But like, we were wacky somatic therapists only like 15 years ago. We were still seen as like super counterculture. And it was actually trauma-informed work that brought us legitimacy. It was one of those like, see, we've been up to something when trauma-informed work and the body made it to the cover of like Psychology Today. It's like one of those like, okay, finally, science and Western education model is catching up to this thing that was in. Yeah, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a big leap. It was just like, right, the body's up to something.
Yeah. We're not just crazy hippies.
That's right.
There is a method to the madness that you're seeing on the outside, even though it doesn't fit in a suit and tie, but there's something here that
you want some neuroscience? We'll bring you some neuroscience.
Sweet. And I'm curious, you've also built a whole body of work around something called HoneyRoot, which maybe you can speak into a little bit and share. And I'm curious too how trauma-informed has woven through you creating this entity or this being or this organization that is HoneyRoot.
I mean, I'll start with the simple fact of I wanted to start with relationship. I wanted to work with people that I felt good with being, like, hanging out with, people that I had at ease communicating with, that I was at ease communicating with, and also people that I had a lot of fun with. And one of the criteria for anyone that was going to be facilitating in HoneyRoot spaces was that they were trauma-informed. And sometimes this meant that one had gone through a whole somatic experiencing training and that they were a decade in deeper into the study than I was. And sometimes this just meant that one had a presence practice that allowed them to be with the material as it was rising without being very active themselves. But they could stay in a responsive mode with whatever was occurring in the space. And then I would be more, and others would be more on kind of like educating them in terms of language and frameworks. But that was at the foundation from the beginning, that anyone that was going to be stepping into a facilitation role was going to know what having a regulated nervous system was going to understand the difference of who they were and how they show up when they were dysregulated or regulated. That they were going to be able to identify what was happening in the space as, oh, there's a big emotion occurring, or, oh, there's a trauma state that's gotten activated and needs a different quality of attention. So that's the trauma-informed piece. It's just like anyone that was going to be coming in and facilitating had this as something that was a pretty deep practice for them already. And then what is HoneyRoot? I mean, it started as one event. It started as an event where the one in me that was just absolutely falling madly in love with feminine spirituality, body-based, relational ways of expanding what I was experiencing and ways of knowing. I was just like madly in love with this version of spirituality that really fit me and made sense to me. And I was studying somatic psychology at the same time. And so I would be on dance floors, which is a very kind of home ground for me. And I would be on dance floors and I would see in kind of two views. One was, watching archetypal energy find others medicinally and create this like wild woo-woo magic. And then there was a part of me going like, oh, isn't that interesting? The shape of that body interacting with that body is creating this kind of energetic, and it's creating a nervous system response that says that. And like the fact that both of those things were happening simultaneously just got my like, deeply loving devotee and my super nerdy, I want to do things in a way that work self. Very excited. And so I wanted people to have how-tos. That's all. I was in grad school. I didn't think people should have to go to grad school in order to learn some things about what was going on in our bodies. And so that was kind of the impetus of like, I'm doing a big piece of healing work in being a female body. I am learning things that seem to be keys in terms of how to get myself out of discomfort and out of suffering into more of a place of ease. I would like to live in a world where I am engaging with more people that have this. So in that way, kind of like a self-serving, like, let me create the world I'd like to see. And then, so that was the first event. And then just got a lot of feedback of, can we see have more? And so I just kept paying attention to what the needs were as they would arise, as I'm sure you know a lot about. And then that just kept informing what we do next, what we do next, what we do next. And eventually it turned into less about female bodies and yet still women-centered, but an education, a place for educating one in somatic with a lot of fun and a lot of irreverence. So there was also kind of like a branding style that is like, hey, we like to get nerdy about stuff, and we also like to, party and open up our bodies in big ways, have fun together. And so, yeah, it just kept throwing itself, and I kept paying attention, showing up for it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I can resonate. I can find myself in what you're sharing. And I'm curious, in what ways did growing HoneyRoot grow you? Like how was what was happening there a reflection of you? And there is a feedback loop, I know personally, that starts to happen through that process. And I would just love to hear what some of those impacts were.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I had like tears come up in my eyes. Thank you for the reminder of like, oh my gosh. In some ways, I provided for myself what I needed, right? I needed the environment to, like, I knew what I thought I could be useful at and what I might even be kind of good at, but I needed to create the environment that would also be the right environment to bring these particular gifts through. So that's sweet that I do that. And then the feedback loop, I mean, it reminds me what was happening for me, reminds me of just how deeply important positive regard and reflection is for our own development, psychologically, spiritually, like for my body to get to do what feels most natural. And to look out and see that that's actually supporting others. And then to get opportunities to have the reflection that says, yes, please, and more. I mean, I really do want that for everyone. Like, I really want that for everyone. I think that there are so many adults that continue to feel like they're moving through the world without having had the deepest part of themselves recognized, validated, given a place. That's uncomfortable. At least for some of us, it's uncomfortable to know that we are carrying a wisdom body, a usefulness, and not knowing how to get it all the way through and all the way out. So how did it grow me up? I mean, being able to look out and see a world that made sense to me, having it offer feedback and say, yes, please, and more. And then this big piece, which is every single, I'm sure you know this, every single moment that I bumped into myself that I didn't feel either. I haven't met a moment like that before. It has shown me where I contort into some more egoic shape, places of tension in my own body. It, first of all, would be like biofeedback. I'd see what was happening if I was uncomfortable or if I was pretending or if I was
Yeah, that's a good one.
tight. I mean, I would just like see it, like, oh, this something starts to feel really bad here. And then I happened to be amongst colleagues that were always really supportive, personal practice and relational practices that would help me expand what was possible in a given moment. Because including what was going on was so at the foundation. Like, I didn't feel like I could include what was going on. That felt like my work to do. And so, in the same way that I know we are together in this motherhood journey, it's like, my goodness, I just didn't know this feeling existed. Or I didn't know that I would ever be in such intimate quarters with who I love, HoneyRoot, or my child. And absolutely has to find a way to go wider rather than tighter if I'm going to stay loving in this. I'm going to stay present. So it's hard work, but like when you're, in the same way the child is like, it's your desire to love and show up well is built in to the moment. Like, oh, okay. What are my tools? I've got my back body, I've got my breath, I've got my ground. So, yeah, it did a lot of that, a lot of growing me up. I was so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Wow. I'm at a choice point now because, okay, so I want to stick with one. I do want to get to motherhood, but we're just going to wait on that for a second. Okay. But I just want to go back to the importance of people, what you said, I forget the exact phrase, positive regard, built-in positive regard. Like, so much of this relational work that we're doing, especially around attunement and somatics, and is around like supporting people to create the sense of self that they didn't get as children. Like, there's so much in those reflections that people bring into adulthood from their families of origin. that is outdated. And so I just want to comment on that and say thank you. And yes, I see that need, and I see it also happening. It's everything is a fractal in field facilitation. It's incredible exactly what I need and what is coming through, and the ways that I'm confirmed and affirmed are the same exact pieces that are happening simultaneously through the group field, where people get to basically build a coherent sense of self that's like, oh, right. Yeah, that's actually who I am. This is actually how I love. I'm not that thing that was put onto me, and I get to like upgrade and update that. And there's like one of the most beautiful things that I see from participants walking away is this newfound sense of empowerment of like, I know that I can be and I am the person I want to be in the world. And if I'm not, I know what steps I can do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like these schools, these places are these incredible practice grounds. And I'm just loving, because the way you're describing it reminds me also a lot of embodied intimacy and the work of embodied intimacy over the last decade to really give people a new sense of self and new imprint for what's possible relationally, and like real basic, practical, scientifically provable, and psychologically informed ways to do that at home with your partners on your own. And it's like, yeah, I'm just really appreciating hearing that work it's like this mycelial network that got informed, and then it just decided to shoot up and sprout up in all these unique different ways and locations. And I love hearing about the other journeys that have been part of blossoming that into being.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can comment if you'd like.
Just on this positive regard piece, which I believe is humanistic psychology is kind of where that term came about, but I think we all know what it means. Like, I am going to relate to you from inside of my heart, which knows that even in your tensions and even in your struggles, even when you are showing up in a way that creates challenge for me, that there is you that is whole, that is just right, that is complete, and not broken. And whatever would get in my way as a facilitator, as a friend, of being able to hang out there, that's my work, right? That's my area. Because there's a way that, first of all, it's just wonderful the impact that we can have on each other when we can do that. As you said, it's often a missing experience for many people. Not only to get like a little dosage of it, right? Because many of us can track like moments in our lives where we've gotten a little bit, but to immerse, to hang out in a field within a community where that is a given. There's nothing like it. There's nothing that can replace that. And so the that and this part of you too, right? Which brings us to like how big shame can be for all of us, just in human bodies, but specifically in group context. It can pop for people. The comparative mind can get going. And to really set the field from the beginning and then continue to weave in moments where maybe one person is showing up in a way that in another context they'd be pushed away, people would move past it and not know what to do about it. But the kind of, profundity of going like leaning in, like, what's this? What's here? This part of you too is welcome here. can be so, game changing. Not only for that person or that individual, but like, oh my gosh, we can be like this in the world. Cool.
Mm-hmm. And as you've been holding, these containers or this organization or these experiences, like, what is the gift that people are walking away with? Like, and part of also part of what would be behind this would be, there's a reason you keep doing this and keep going. Like, there's something that's happening in your space that you're like, yes, that transformation, that change, that upgrade, that new way of being is that's worth me getting out of bed and continuing to do this work. And I'm curious what that is that you're getting back, what participants are showing you, what's changing. That's like, there's something here that's so valuable. It's worth this time and my energy.
What was occurring to me as you were speaking was this t-shirt we made. HoneyRoot made a lot of these, like, punchy, truth opens me, self-love is sexy, honesty is the new foreplay. And there's one that was occurring to me. Relaxation is the new flirtation. That's what that's what was occurring to me when you were saying what are people walking away with. I'm like, we go from tensions to relaxation. And tensions can come in so many forms. It's so wonderful when things that feel like they are like problems of the psyche or the way we're thinking about something, to support people in realizing that you don't necessarily need to like fix it all upstairs, but that to notice I am now tense, whether it's just a little bit in my jaw or the squeeze in my solar plexus or my anus just got tight, or the way my my toes are curling in just a little bit, like, to support people in tracking tension and relaxation as the continuum supports many people in being able to walk away with that tool set, which is for a lot of people one of those game changers of like, I thought I need to work through all these childhood wounds in a particular way or relational struggles in a particular way, and just say, hey, what if the game were about seeing how you can stay relaxed, noticing when you are in tension, and having a whole lot of tools that you're going home with to pick up and use when you notice those moments of tension. And so that's one thing, is that I think some of the empowerment is coming from like, I now know what to do in those moments. Those moments were something that were just like hard moments or complicated moments, or wow, I would get a whole narrative going about what was going on for that other. And, what that means in relation to me, and to walk away with like, oh wait, I can do this differently, a way that I think that can be empowering.
Yeah.
And then knowing that both reverence and irreverence can live inside one body, let alone one subculture. I think that was also very satisfying for people. Like, any sense of like, oh, this is the good part of me, bad part of me, or this is the light part of me, the shadow part of me. It's so wonderful to watch people be a beacon of light that then brings out like, hey, did you know that it can all fit? Like, did you know that we don't have to cut off parts of ourselves? And then to be hopefully models of that in the world. And yeah, so I think there's a walking away with knowing what's possible. And also tools, skill sets that can help them into one.
Yeah, so like radical self-acceptance of the full range of one's experience, tools to make it through the challenges. And I love the first one, which I would also name as like the ability to choose versus like the unconscious. And you could call it bringing, I know it's like overused, but like bringing consciousness to relating and to like the way that I show up in the world, which is that I actually have a choice. I think most people, like what you were saying, they don't even know that there's a choice. They're just run by the instinctual responses that arise versus like, wow, that's really interesting. There's heat in my face and my hands are clenching and my butt cheeks are getting tight. Oh, what is my body saying to me right now? And can I just listen to that without allowing it to move me? But can I let it inform me? And what happens if I relax it? Then what do I want to do differently? It's like a whole new world of possibilities opens up when we work with and listen versus just like are just taken, you know? So yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
And I thought, as you spoke about it, I can track your vitality. So there's also something about that. And I know you speak about that a lot, like that there's a connection between relaxation and then the vital energy,
It gets
life force.
Flow. Yeah.
That gets to flow. And I mean, no wonder people would want to come back for more of that. Like, oh, that's the stuff that I, try to find in all the ways, right? I'm trying to feel my vitality. I'm trying to feel like if I'm embodied, can I be in life, in life while I am. And so I could feel it as you were speaking. It's like, oh yeah, and then this thing starts to happen, this rolling through the spine thing.
Yeah. So good. It never ends, really. I think that's what I love the most about these somatic relational meditations and inquiries is that there's just always something new to discover. It's like, it's never, oh, that's things happening again in my, spine. It's like, wow, wow, this is coming alive with you. And now this is opening up and it just gets more and more subtle and complex and pleasurable. And yeah. Life.
And the one thing that was occurring to me as we were speaking about being able to be in a responsive state rather than the reactivity and kind of the being tossed around by life. Is that another thing that I associate with my time with HoneyRoot, although I know it's common in the somatic world, is because mindfulness as a cultural wave came in before somatics. There was something that I started to track of those of us that want to notice what's occurring in our body, that we started to detach a little bit from the self experience. And so I just want to speak to the play that I'm sure is in the fields that you are building and helping to conduct. And also something that's really important to me, which is to be aware of if we are heading into a place of awareness, sometimes almost for too long. I don't know, too long, but it has a certain impact. If we are just watching, observing, that can lift us out of something that can be another place of experiencing, which is more the relational, which is more the embodied. So it's kind of like to know that if we are becoming aware of a lot of what's going on inside of our body, that it might be time to change the channel and go, ooh, let me go into sensation. Ooh, that sensation, I don't want to go into story with it. So let me be mindful and let me track that there's heat here and there's tension there, and then let me go, I'm getting a little too outside of it. Let me go back in and feel it. So
yeah, it's been really interesting around what you're saying when we're using mindfulness to deepen our exploration of our body, that I've also been experimenting with language and noticing, just as you said, when someone says like, I'm noticing this in my body, that it creates a detachment from and potentially potential for disassociation versus saying, I'm feeling this in my body. And just that change of word, doing the same exact practice, can bring someone into a deeper sense of embodiment. But just like you said, also, if someone's in a trauma response, we don't want them feeling more and becoming more and more dysregulated. We want them to become aware of what's happening. So it's not only the words, it's also the context and the moment and the situation someone's in for how we use mindfulness and embodiment to support regulation or awareness or yeah.
And those are some of the tools that become so awesome. Like, oh my gosh, it's one word that can shift an entire state. Like, yes, there's one word that can shift an entire experience. I love that. We talk about that a lot in Hakomi, which is one of my trainings. A mindfulness-based, body-oriented therapy that plays with that a lot. Is noticing where we want to be, or is experiencing and feeling going to be more beneficial to filling out our experience of ourselves?
I love it. I'm so excited. There's where we were 10 years ago and where we are now. And like 10 years ago, that wouldn't have even, this conversation wouldn't have even been possible to happen. We were just doing, I mean, maybe for someone else it would, but there's an emergence of knowledge. And as we continue to actualize it, we learn more. And I'm just so excited in 10 years where we'll be with being trauma informed in the nervous system and embodiment and mindfulness. Like it's in a very expanded potential moment right now. I was actually just this week, I'm in Berlin, and on 2 different occasions, I've been out eating at a restaurant, and at the table next to me, someone has been talking about trauma. And it's always one friend, and they're teaching the other friend, like, the nervous system, and this is how it works. And I'm like, this is so cool. Something is happening right now where 2 different times I'm hearing the exact same frequency of conversation of like, there's this thing called trauma, and you have a nervous system, and here's what you need to know about it. We're kind of coming to our moment, and I would just love to hear a little bit from you on this same topic of like there could be 2 threads of it, and I'll just let you feel what comes through as I pose this. With just one, what are you most wanting people who are facilitating groups to understand or know or be able to embody as facilitators? What feels the most like you had to give, if you could give everyone like one thing, and there's a kind of part 2, and you can see optional, which is, where do you see us going? Like, why does this all matter? And what would you want? Like, what is the development of these spaces in the context of our global crisis? And it could also look like bringing it home more to HoneyRoot or your work in the world. Like, what's the next frontier?
When you asked, what do I want everyone to know? It was really simple how it showed up. It's that nothing needs to happen. I can muse on that a bit more, but I think that's the drive to do and the drive to fix is so strong and so well practiced, especially in Western culture, that it really, really can bring facilitators, since we're speaking, those of us that show up in that way, it really can be the thing that brings us out of presence, out of the moment. Something needs to happen now. Something needs to be fixed. There's tension. So first and foremost, can I take a breath and know that whatever is occurring as I'm facilitating, that nothing needs to happen. Now, of course, there's safety matters. Of course, there are ways that we could fill out that point of view. But to be able to carry into a group space the sense of as you are, as you are, as you are. That's huge, right? Huge. I also want people to know that there are how-tos to how to conduct a space that feels right to the facilitator, right enough. So, for example, when I'm working with people that are studying trauma-informed facilitation, there might be a way that I watch them come into what do I do when, ... And I love answering those questions. I mean, that is actually a really good place for me because I'm like, ooh, one of these 14 things and try them out. However, first and foremost is, can you be okay with doing nothing in this moment? And then there's a whole, personal practice. And how can I at least get one deep breath in? Or 3 or 10 before responding to this moment. So that's one. Yeah. And that we can both rest back as facilitators and also enter. And those 2 skills I hope we play with when we're together. Because often people are much more comfortable in one of those shapes than the other. And so to build agility with both being on the receiving end of a facilitator and as a conductor, one that's shaking the space, and like people knowing that they can have a range of possibility there. So that's what would I like people to know, be better at, have the skill for. And then the global question of why is this important now? Through my life, I've experienced I've been in relationship to death and dying in a way that is, I guess I met it earlier than some people do, and maybe thus, or maybe it's something bigger than that, how a way of being with change and death and dying in a way that is, I guess it's unique. If you look at our greater culture, it's kind of the depths of it. I think that whether it is that we are dying into something new and refreshed, or whether there's something altogether going away right now as a culture, as a global culture, if we're scared of it, that can create tension. And when we are tense, we can be quite reactive and we can make messes and we can injure each other. If we can be with that things actually are changing, there is a mystery ahead. There is a mystery that we're in, that we do not know always what to do with or even where we're headed. If we together as a people can find more at easeness, more relaxation with the fact that stuff is going away, things are dying, and that we don't know where that is leading, then there's a possibility that we can do better together. And I'll just say it again, tensions lead to reactivity. Reactivity can mean that we're hurting each other. I think most of us agree that we don't want to do that. And so providing spaces where we can practice our how-tos on how to be more at ease with the big changes that are happening personally, culturally, globally. I mean, that's that. And we got to be with like things that hurt. Of course, that's that troubling connotation, but things hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Things are uncomfortable. And if we can be together with that, less divisiveness, less reactivity, I think that's a better way to move through these times.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. It's such a perfect ending. It's like if we can relax and come together, we actually have a chance. Is kind of the undercurrent of what I hear. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
A chance to at least be connected in whatever is occurring.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. To be continued. I'm really excited to get to play with you in bodies and flesh very soon. Thank you for the continuation of the opening of the space between us and the field US that will begin very soon. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you so much, Dev, and thank you for listening to this 7th episode of In Presence We Trust. As Dev and I have both mentioned in the episode, we will be co-facilitating alongside David Cates the first and possibly only week-long field facilitator training this September 9 to 16 in Florida, USA. You are so warmly welcome and invited to jump in and join us for this very special, very important training in the art and heart of what it means to hold group transformational spaces as a field facilitator and embodied leader. Until next week, check out my website for more information on this and other upcoming courses. Special thank you to all the beings who have contributed to the creation of this podcast: Michelle, Vaishnavi, Joby, Lavinia, and the Soundfields, Thomas and John. And thank you again for joining me as we continue this journey and open up the new communal space and learning environment that is In Presence We Trust. You can subscribe or follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to like and comment below. Until next time, deep breath,